Meie heade naabrite tugi oli sel ajal hindamatu ja seda nii vaimses kui materiaalses plaanis. Ja mul on hea meel paluda täna lavale mehe, kelle teeneid selles vallas on võimatu alahinnata. Rootsi kuningriigi suursaadik Eesti Vabariigis aastatel 91–95. Eesti suur sõber Lars Arne Grundberg, palun.
Mr. President, dear friends, and I would like to direct myself mainly to Mart Laar and Katrin Laar and their son and their daughter. We had a lot of cooperation and this greeting to them personally come also from my wife and not least from my youngest son, Sven Grundberg, who still speaks fluently Estonian. I met Carl Bildt earlier this week, and he knew at that moment that he would not be able to make to come here, and he was very sorry for that, and he asked me to convey his sorrowness for that. But he knew also that I had accepted the invitation, and he asked me to say some personal words also to you, and I will do that. I have a long list of events, of adventures, of meetings, and so on, and I know that there is only 10 minutes, so I will just take some of them. I met Mart Laar on the third day of my office here, and that was one of the last meetings with the Eesti Congress. I was on my way to the airport and dropped into a huge meeting where the Eesti Congress was assembled, and I start to think, can I take the floor here or not? I am accredited to the Estonian government, not to the Eesti Congress. But then I said, okay, they have provided with half of the Constitutional Assembly, so they are also part of the system. So I was given the microphone, somebody translated into Estonian, and I have never in my life received such an reception, such an ovation after my words. And that was not because of me, it was because of the fact that Estonia was free. I was a symbol of the fact that new ambassadors were starting to walk in the streets of Tallinn. I was the first. A couple of days after me came the German colleague, which many of you will remember, Henning von Wistinghausen, and later on, a couple of weeks later, Jaakko Kaurinkoski, and then followed France, Denmark, Norway, and Russia. I became personally quite a good friend with Alexander Trofimov. He came from a French-speaking country in Africa to Estonia. I think it was from Mali, and his family preferred to speak French. So it must have looked quite funny when we were walking over the Raekoja Platz, talking with each other in the French language nicely and without any personal problems between the two of us. Now, yes, we have heard a lot about the problems with the economy. Just in the beginning, the months after the restoration of independence. It so happened that in wintertime 1992, it was decided that His Majesty the King and Queen Silvia should make a state visit to Estonia, and the date was decided to be 21st and 22nd of April 1992. And then it was also up on the table that Sweden should restore the gold reserve which have landed during the war before the Soviet occupation in the Swedish National Bank. I was very occupied of that matter because it was something we should repair history and doing this in an elegant way. And then I felt, of course, we shall do this symbolically, and I hope that Stockholm will send the gold pieces, not exactly the ones that were deposited, but new gold pieces. And I think a good idea would be to have it on the ship that will transport the king and the queen. And then I got the instruction from our Ministry of Finance to find out how this gold should be restored. And I was full of ideas, and I went then to the head of the National Bank of Estonia, Siim Kallas, here present. And I presented my matter, said that the Ministry of Finance of Stockholm has asked me to ask, how do you want the gold to come back? And I took up my book and started, I thought I should note exactly how we should make it. Siim had a little note, that big only. And you know what was written on it? It was written a German bank and the number of an account. Very typical Estonian. And with some deception, I had to report that back to Stockholm, that credit this account in Germany and the thing is over. Now, the state visit was extremely successful. I think that still, if you would wake up the king and the queen in the middle of the night and ask them which is of all your international visits that has been the most touching and the most emotional, I would think that they should immediately answer our visit to Estonia in April 1992. Now, somewhat later, there started to come more and more rumors about that the date was there to introduce the Eesti Kroon. But of course it was kept secret, and it was very well kept secret. But I could, a day in June, something like June 20, people here would remember the date, I could report back to Stockholm that from very good sources I know that Eesti Kroon will be introduced tomorrow. How did I know it? I had been to Saaremaa that day, the day before the introduction. And on the ferry back, I saw a truck, which was a Swedish truck, a big Scania Vabis, all black. But if you looked closely to it, you could see that it had been written on the truck, Sveriges Riksbank, National Bank of Sweden. And that's true. The Swedish National Bank has given to the Estonian bank a truck to transport values. So I asked my culture attaché, who is also sending his best regards, many of you know him well, Hans Lepp. I asked him to go to the truck driver and gently ask him, what are you doing here? We see it is a Swedish National Bank truck. Well, we are distributing Eesti Kroon for tomorrow. So I could mention that from very good sources, I know that the money will be introduced tomorrow. Well, the election came. It was a great moment. As Prime Minister, or now Foreign Minister Carl Bildt said, it was the 21st of October. Its program made a lot of respect in the Western world. And also some parties thought that some of the things were too advanced For instance, the flat tax. We now heard what was behind the figure of 26, which was quite funny, in fact. But it was met with a lot of respect in our country, and that was mentioned by, not least by our foreign minister Margareta af Ugglas when she came here on many occasions. In fact, I received her 5 times during my stay in Estonia, and I received also Carl Bildt 5 times at those days. Now, Jüri Luik has mentioned, and others have mentioned, the so-called Narva crisis, and it was also mentioned by Carl Bildt. When this crisis got very kind of acute, I happened to be in Stockholm over the weekend to celebrate Midsummer, Sankt Hans, and the State Secretary of Foreign Affairs phoned me and said, Lars, you have to go back to Tallinn. You know that is problematic. And don't ask me why we are sending you back abruptly like this on a Saturday evening, but please go. And when I came to the embassy, I understood the reason. The reason was that Carl Bildt had decided to prolong a trip to Tromsø in Norway and to fly to Estonia on his way back. And that was an act of support of the Laar government and of the country of Estonia. And I had then to organize his program. Well, it was, of course, no problem to fix meetings with Mart Laar and with the foreign minister and so on. But I wanted also for him to see 2 other fellows, namely a certain van der Stoel, which many of you will remember. He was the OECD Commissioner for National Minorities. He had been to Narva and Sillamäe and should be back on that Monday when Carl Bildt came. And I wanted Carl Bildt to see also the mayor of Narva. I don't remember his name now, but we have seen his face on the videos, a well-polished head. And how should I do to get those people to the embassy and meet Carl Bildt? Well, sometimes you are lucky. With van der Stoel, I already had developed a system. There were no mobile telephones at those days. He was given, when he came to Tallinn for his talks and investigations, a fairly old black Mercedes, which could be recognized immediately. And I had developed a system where I wrote a note and put it on the windscreen of his Mercedes. And he read the note, phoned me, and that was that. So then I had van der Stoel in the house. And then what about the mayor of Narva? Can somebody quote his name? Chuikin. We phoned to his office. No, he is in Tallinn. Ah, bravo. And where? We don't know. And then for some very curious reason, I happened to to find him in the lobby of a hotel and said to him, please now come to my embassy tomorrow, and you shall talk to Carl Bildt there. Okay, I will prolong my stay until tomorrow, and we will meet in the embassy. And that picture was shown on the video here. I don't know if you remember that there were some coffee cups with the Swedish crowns on them. So that was that moment. I think that the visit of Carl Bildt at that moment was very important, and he still quotes that as a major crisis which was solved. Now, at the end here on the preparations of my visit to this meeting, the organizers, through Veiko Lukman, asked if I had some photos to send by email. I had not, but I brought with me, and this is a special greeting to Mart Laar, I brought with me the book of the preparing or the finishing of the Swedish embassy here in Tallinn. And there is a very nice photo. I don't know if it will be seen on the screen, perhaps better than anything. And there on the balcony, you can see who are standing. Mart Laar, Jüri Luik, Margareta Voglas, Lennart Meri, Gunnel Grundberg, Lars Grundberg, and a policeman. And I would like to, through the organizers, to hand this book over to Mart and Katrin with this photo. I shall finish my little intervention with another photo, which I have not brought with me. The Pope, His Holiness the Pope, made a visit to Tallinn. And being the Dean of the Diplomatic Corps, I was of course involved in that. But at the end of the afternoon, the Pope had a private seance in one of the churches. I think it was in Niguliste, where there were no participants. And he came out from one of the side doors. And I happened to walk there with my wife and my daughter and a friend of my daughter. They were on visit. And we just jumped into each other. And the Pope put his hand on the head of these two 12, 13-year